Today we'll be putting everything together, talking about finding the most specific way to name a shape, but doing it on an actual graph now. And so when we do this, to prove that the shape is a rhombus, we're going to show that the diagonals are perpendicular. So we got to find the slope, and they have to be opposite reciprocals. So same number. Different signs and flipped over versions of each other. So again, like the opposite reciprocal of -1/2 would be positive 2/1 or positive 2. If I had a 4, opposite reciprocal would be -1/4. So change the sign and flip it. If it's negative, it becomes positive. Positive, it's negative. For it to be a rectangle, we're going to show that the diagonals are the same size. So you can use the distance formula, or the way that I'll do it is on a graph, I'll make a right triangle out of it. And so I will do the x squared plus y squared is equal to the distance squared. Just how far it moves horizontally plus how much it moves vertically, and then that's equal to d squared. Take a square to both sides. The next one, show it's a square, just like we talked about yesterday. It is a rhombus and a rectangle. And sometimes it won't be either of those, and so to prove it's a parallelogram, we want to show that the diagonals bisect each other, which they just have the same midpoint. And if it's none of those things, again, if it's not a parallelogram, which is the first thing that we're going to check, if it's not a parallelogram, then we know that it's just a quadrilateral. It's nothing else. Okay? And so with these, we're going to plot the points, and then we're going to go. So with the first one, got A is -5, -3, -1, -1, 0, 1, 2, -3, and then -1, 2, 3, 4, -5. Again, I get that we can already tell that the shape isn't going to be a square, so I know it's not, or it doesn't look like it's going to be a rhombus because I can kind of see that, but we do have to prove it, so you have to do it. So when I do this, again, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the midpoints. So the midpoint, I should have written this up in the last slide. Midpoint is just add your x's together. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2. It's my x coordinate of my midpoint, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So you just add the x's together and divide by 2. So here, to find the midpoint, so midpoint of AC, again, I'm going to do -5 plus 0 divided by 2, and then -3 plus -3 divided by 2. So the midpoint of AC is going to be, so -5 plus 0 gives me -5, -5 divided by 2 gives me -2.5. And then -3 plus -3 gives me -6. -6 divided by 2 is going to give me -3. Okay. Do the same thing for BD, so midpoint of BD. So I'm going to go -1 plus -4 divided by 2. And then -1 plus -5 divided by 2. So -1 plus -4 gives me -5, divided by 2 gives me -2.5. And then -1 plus -5 gives me -6, divided by 2 gives me -3. So again, same midpoint, so I know it's a parallelogram. Next one, I'm going to try to see if it's a rhombus or not. So I'm going to find whether I'm going to do distance first. So figure out whether it's a rectangle or not. So I'm going to find the length of AC. And so when I do that, let's see on my drawing down here, I've got, this is A, B, C, and D. And so to find the length, so if I'm going to find the length of AC first, it's kind of easy because I can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So AC is 5. Find the length of BD. So this is where I'll actually make a right triangle out of this. So to go from B to D, I travel vertically and horizontally. I traveled up 1, 2, 3, 4. and I traveled right 1, 2, 3. So to figure out this length, I can make a right triangle out of it, and so I can go 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to d squared. And so 3 squared gives me 9, plus 16 is equal to d squared. That gives me 25. So 25 is equal to d squared. So take a square root, and I can show that the length of BD is 5 as well. So since they're both 5, I know that the shape is a rectangle. And the last thing is find the slope. So the one thing that's kind of easy about this is I already have my rise over my run here. My rise is 4, my run is 3. So I know that the slope of BD is going to be, again, rise is on the top, so positive 4 over positive 3. So 4/3. And a slope of AC, it's a flat line, so it's 0. So I know that it's not a rhombus. And so I know that the most specific name that I can name this is it is a rectangle. So that's my final answer, is that it's a rectangle. Okay. Next one down. Again, same thing. So first thing I'm going to do is plot my points. So 0, 1. That's M. I don't like that. -1, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's N. Then P is 2, 5. And Q is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So here's my shape. N, P, and Q. And so again, first thing I'm going to do is check to make sure that it is a, so find the midpoint of MP, which is 0 plus 2 divided by 2, and then 1 plus 5 divided by 2. When I do that, I get 2 over 2, which is 1, and then 6 over 2, which is 3. So I get 1, 3. Midpoint of NQ. Let's see, it's -1 plus 3 divided by 2, and then 4 plus 2 divided by 2. So -1 plus 3 gives me 2 over 2, which is 1, and then I get 6 over 2, which is 3. So again, I know that the shape's a parallelogram. Next thing, move on to distance. Find the distance of MP. Again, MP. Make a right triangle out of that. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go to the right 2. So distance of MP is going to be 4 squared plus 2 squared is equal to x squared. It gives me 16 plus 4. It gives me 20. And then take the square root of both sides. Square root of 20 gives me 4 point something. So I get x is equal to 4.5. Let's find the other diagonal, which is NQ. NQ, same thing. I'm going down 2 and right. So I'm going down 2 and then right 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 squared plus 4 squared is equal to d squared, or x squared, whatever you want to call it. Again, it's going to be 16 plus 4, which gives me 20. And again, take the square root of both sides, and that gives me that my distance is equal to 4.5. So I can see that the distances, the lengths of MP and NQ are the same, so I know it's a rectangle. Then the last thing that I have to do is my slopes. So find the slope of MP and NQ. And so again, the slope going from M to P, which is my green lines here, I'm going up 4 and right 2. So my slope is 4 over 2, both positive, which is 2. Reduce the fraction to make sure. And then the other one, my yellow line, NQ, is down 2 and right 4. So down 2 and right 4, so negative 2 over positive 4. Again, reduces down to negative 1/2. And so they are different signs, and they're flipped over versions of each other. So I know that this is a rhombus as well. So it's a rectangle and a rhombus, which means that the entire thing is a square. Go ahead and flip over to the back then. And so this next one, this is why we do the midpoint first. So with this next one, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the midpoint of MP, which again gives me negative 5 plus 7 divided by 2, and then 3 plus 0 divided by 2. So when I do that, let's see, it gives me 2 over 2, which is 1, and then 3 over 2, which is 1.5. Find the midpoint of NQ. Whoops. Oops. So NQ is going to give me 3 plus negative 1 divided by 2, and then 7 plus negative 5 divided by 2. And so I get 3 negative 1 and 7 and negative 5. So 3 plus negative 1 gives me 2. 2 over 2 gives me 1. And the other one I get 2 over 2, which is 1. So they don't have the same midpoint, so I know this is not a parallelogram. And so I don't even have to draw the thing, and I don't have to do anything else. If I know that it's not a parallelogram, it means it's not a rectangle, it's not a rhombus, it's not a square. So this one just ends up being a quadrilateral. So quadrilateral, since it's not a parallelogram, all the other ones are. Then the last one, again, start with my midpoint of MP and NQ. So MP is going to be negative 5 plus 3 divided by 2, and negative 5 plus 6 divided by 2. So when I do that, I get, let's see, negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1, and then 1 over 2, which is 0.5. Second one, NQ, I go negative 7 plus 5 divided by 2, and then 4 plus negative 3 divided by 2. So when I do that, I get, let's see, negative 2 over 2, which gives me negative 1, and then 1 over 2, which gives me 0.5. So I know it's a parallelogram. Next thing, find the length of MP. So when I plot these points, M is negative 5, negative 5, negative 7, negative 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 3, 6, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 5, negative 3. So 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 3. I did not plot one of those points right. It's supposed to be negative 7, positive 4. Whoops. Negative 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Sorry about that. And so there's my shape. Let's name them. I got M, N, P, and Q. And so again, first thing is distance. So I'm going to go from M to P. I go up and right. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can go 8 squared plus 11 squared is equal to my distance squared. Let's see. 8 squared is 64, so 64 plus 121 gives me 185 is equal to d squared. Take the square root of both of those, and you get d is equal to 13.6. NQ, same thing. I'm going to do that one highlighting it in yellow. So to go from N to Q, down there, and then over. So with that one, I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 7 and 12. So I can go 7 squared plus 12 squared is equal to d squared. So I get 49 plus 144, which gives me 193. So the distance ends up being 13.9. So I know that this is not a rectangle. Next thing is to find the slope. So the slope of MP. Again, MP is the green line, so I went up 11 and right 7. So 8. Up 11 and right 8, so 11 over 8. And then with NQ, I went down 7 and to the right 12. So negative 7 over 12. Those aren't the same numbers, so I know they're not flipped over versions. They are opposite of each other, but they're not reciprocals of each other. So I know that it's not a rhombus. So not a rhombus, not a rectangle. So I know the best way to describe this shape is a parallelogram. There we go. So again, a little bit of work, but just remember that when you make those right triangles to find the distance, you're already finding your slope, and so that makes it a little bit easier.